Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Industrial Community Development Committee. Present are myself, Councillor Gould, Councillor Daigle, Councillor Manning Martin, Councillor McGinn, Councillor Rosignol, also in attendance, Councillor Melville, Councillor Peach, Councillor Turco. Mr. Mayor, would you like to open up for us? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening to you. Good evening to all of you councilors. Hope you and your families are doing well. I am here today to request that we as a city adopt changes to our zoning ordinance to allow permanent outdoor dining in the city of Peabody. I believe we were one of the very first cities or towns in this area to adapt to the changing world because of COVID to allow for outdoor dining. It was unanimously approved. I think we took strong action as a city to try to allow restaurants and eateries the ability to retain staff, to expand seating, to increase their revenues during those difficult times. This was presented to you first in June of 2020, and then we had 2 subsequent extensions to allow for those additional time. I've received great word and feedback from a number of restaurant owners and eateries in this city that it really helped them during some difficult times, and people want to continue to have that ability and that option should they do so. At one point, we had 18 that took advantage of that opportunity. Some it worked really well for, others not something that they wanted to continue, but there are a number in our city, and I think all of you are familiar, you've all been to those restaurants and eateries like I have, and to give them the ability to continue that opportunity, that service. It's become an important part of their service. So we wanted to present this as an option to allow for this dining option and to make it something that's permanent in our city. It would still be done on an application period. We have proposed seasonal. I would certainly be open to having that year-round. But in terms of what we presented today, it would be seasonal. They have to apply. It has to be checked by all the boards as typically done in the health department and all of that, building and department, to make sure that it's meeting code and everything. But we think it's important to allow those restaurants and eateries to at least know that this is always an option for their planning purposes. The state has continued it as well, but at some point the state, I don't think, will be taking action, allowing cities and towns to make their decisions for themselves. And I believe that it's important to allow restaurants and eateries that ability to know that this is an option for them and something that they continue to do. So I think it's something we should have permanently here in our community, and wanted to bring that forward for discussion and hopeful support. So Kurt Bellavance, our Community Development Director, is here to certainly answer any questions along with myself. This, as I said, would have to still go through the review. Liquor Licensing Board would have to be involved in terms of making sure that their standards and rules and regulations are being followed, as we always do. So happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Being respectful of one of our proprietors, Kevin Holden, the proprietor of Champions, would you like to come up and just give 30 seconds to a minute about how it works for you? No, I guess not. All right. I was giving you a plug, Kevin. Then we'll turn it to fellow councilors, or would you like Mr. Bellavance to get into the details of it?
I think we're ready.
Okay, we're ready. Fellow councilors, please. Councilor McGinn, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think along the lines of what was described by the mayor, it was a successful experiment over the last 2 years. I'm supportive of making this change. Mechanically, what's happening here is although it is a change to zoning, it's actually being pulled out of zoning in a sense. All that's being left behind is a definition in zoning, and then this separate and distinct from that is a policy is being created, which is what was put forth by the administration. I think it makes sense in this context. It's this including this in zoning and the process and so forth never seemed to make a lot of sense to me. It had been questioned a couple of times along the way. So I think that this way of structuring it is logical. Also, I looked over in detail the proposed language, and it is largely the language that existed through the 2-year period under the temporary process, but it cuts out all the COVID-specific language, and it also kind of eliminates the notion of this being a license, and it's just now an approved application that would be dealt with on an annual basis. I did make some suggested edits to this, and those were very minor and really only were to capture a couple of things. One is to pick up a couple of things that were in zoning that it seemed like we would want to retain. For example, that if there are any of the tables and chairs and so forth that were used for this outdoor dining that were on a sidewalk or in another area, that they needed to be removed at the end of the season. Then in the insurance section, there was a number of places in there where the draft language had referred to the licensee and so forth, so that was just changed. What I had suggested were changes to refer to the applicant as the applicant rather than the licensee, so that the language would be consistent throughout the entire policy. And I reviewed all these with Mr. Bellavance, and he was in concurrence with all of them. Additionally, what was not included in our original package was Mr. Chairman, this is all captured in late communication 4, which I'd move to receive.
You heard the motion by Councilor McGann. Councilor Manning Martin? Object?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So happy to verbally review any of the changes that were suggested. Should any of councilors want to question that? In fact, let's just do that, because the version of the policy that I would support I would want to include these. So if we were to go to item A, Mr. Chairman, section 2.
I'm not sure. I was giving him a second to describe.
Yeah, so, yeah, item A on the
Yep.
agenda, Mr.
Yep.
Chairman. Section 2, page 3. I'm sorry. The outdoor, so the top of the page is labeled City of Peabody Outdoor Seasonal Dining Policy. Make sure people have that, councilors have that.
Do you have that, Councilor Manning Martin? Yep.
First page is a letter from
The mayor.
mayor. The second page is the draft language for an ordinance amending the zoning, and then the third page has a heading that says City of Peabody Outdoor Seasonal Dining Policy. Yep. It's item A on the agenda. Yes. So on that third page, section 2, I'm going down to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th line, where it says a safe and sanitary manner by the applicant. So the full sentence there is perimeter treatments, umbrellas, furniture, and trash receptacles shall be supplied by the applicant and shall be maintained in a safe sanitary manner by the applicant. And the language that I have suggested be added is and must be removed promptly at the end of the season. this is, again, Mr. Chairman, consistent with the language that is in zoning today.
If there are individual questions to Councillor McGinn's amendments, please let me know. If not, we'll vote on it as a whole after he gives his amendments. Councillor McGinn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you flip the page to top of the next page, section 6.
Councillor Manning Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can we take this in sections because other councilors have questions and input per section?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Thank you.
Councillor McGinn will
Sure,
look
I'd
to
have-
you to add in at any point, but Section 1, purpose and scope, are there any councilors that have objections or added? Councillor Rossignol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know later on in this it states that this is going to be annual. So is there a date that you want the applicants to apply for it by? And is there going to be a date where you'll have the approval by? And what would be the process to notify each restaurant or vendor that wants to apply for the outdoor dining?
Mr. Mayor, please.
So thank you, Councillor. So yes, we have proposed it to be seasonal as we have kind of been operating here. I am open to the discussion in terms of some restaurants or eateries have utilized it in terms of during the winter months with the igloo concept. I think some of you have seen that at some of the restaurants. We've proposed right now just for discussion and to get things going on a seasonal basis. So yeah, once we, if this were to be approved, we would send out notices, and then probably at the conclusion of every season, probably maybe after the holidays in January, we would send out notices that applications would be due by a certain date for the upcoming season.
So roughly, sorry, through the chair. So roughly you're looking at January, sending out notices to anybody that's willing or wanting to participate, with roughly a February approval date, with things starting, let's say, March, April, moving forward until November, December, something along those lines?
I think right now we're looking at April 1st to November 1st. Excuse me, November 30th. April 1st to November 30th. So I figure sending out a notice right after the holidays in the beginning of January, notifying them of the time frame in order to reapply for the April 1st target date. Maybe have submissions in by February 1st. That would give the boards and commissions and departments that opportunity to review. And then I think we can meet that time frame of April 1st.
Rossignol?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just one last question regarding that. So that's going to be evaluated annually as well, so that if there was an issue or something that arose, there would be a process to vet any issues.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like at some point we'll get to the point, like when we have the year-end approvals for licenses and things, that we know what's there, all the departments know what the plan is and everything. But certainly, initially, as we develop this, it would be certainly reviewed annually. Liquor licensing board would have their work to do, building inspector, fire department, all of that is done on a routine basis. And I think we'll get to that point where it's routine, but certainly initially, all those boards and departments will be doing their work.
Last question regarding this is, so in the final draft, there will be dates for all of these benchmarks?
I think that's a good suggestion, yes. And we'll fine tune that a bit, but I'm thinking right after the holidays, those letters would be sent out at the February 1st timeframe and be able to operate from there. So yeah, that would be spelled out in those letters and in the paperwork.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
Councilor
Chairman.
Rossignol. Is there anyone else who'd like to comment on Section 1? Councilor Manning Martin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In Section 1, a major change well, first, I support outdoor dining and doing whatever we can for the restaurants to make this process easier. What we did learn with COVID was that the reason why restaurants weren't doing outdoor dining is because the process was so cumbersome. They had to make 10 copies, send them out, and it was quite antiquated and a lot of work for them. So they would say, well, we're not even going to bother doing that. You have to do it every year. And so they wouldn't do it. And then, which I don't blame them. And then when COVID came, we made some changes, the state made changes, and it was much easier for them. The process was streamlined, and people were benefited from that being streamlined. So I'm all in favor of tweaking this and streamlining things for that purpose. But the major change to me, and it kicks off in section 1, is that the outdoor dining applications will be reviewed by city departments and will be approved by the mayor. And that would be a change from, I don't know the language, but it would be instead of coming before the city council. And in doing that, again, I understand we want to streamline things, but when you don't come to the city council for the approval, the public doesn't get to hear what's happening. So by changing it from the city council to the mayor, in essence, in my opinion, we're really shutting out the people that need to know what's happening on public lands, public sidewalks, public property, or in their neighborhood, and give them an opportunity to be heard, whether they agree with it or disagree with it. The opportunity for them to be heard and know about it is completely erased with that one, change, in my opinion. So if a dining establishment popped up someplace on a public sidewalk and people said, how did this happen? And then they weren't pleased with it, they were unhappy about it, they would call us. Say, when did this happen? When did you vote on that? And our response would be, we didn't. That all changed, and you'll have to call the mayor's office. Those are calls I don't want to get, and that's a referral I don't want to make. Because in changing it in this way, the public won't know in advance. Whether they agree or disagree, they should at least be heard by their representatives, which in this case would be us, and then we would vote prior to this change, if we were to switch it right from the city council to the mayor. So that's really my overwhelming concern about this. I don't want to scrap the whole thing, but I don't want to cut the public out from having a say in what happens on public sidewalks and in their neighborhoods, because that is a drastic change. So sticking with section 1, that's a concern of mine, making that change.
Mr. Mayor, would you like to address it?
Thank you. It's not a drastic change. This is what we've been operating under the last couple of years. This is temporary dining regulations. We just brought forward the same exact language that we had done before. You spoke about, and I agree with completely what you spoke about in the beginning of your comments, was streamlining the process. So that's why we did it this way, because it does streamline the process. If it goes to the council, there's some additional time frames, and I am all for that if that's the will of the council. To me, it's about streamlining and helping businesses move things along and move the process along. As they have the last couple of months, we've been able to get businesses open very quickly, get their outdoor seating set up, done very expeditiously, and that's why we brought it forward this way. It wasn't a drastic change that we sat about and thought and considered. It's just we brought forward what we had been operating under the last couple of years, because we believe that it helped restaurants, eateries, the owners, their patrons, their employees be able to move things along at a faster pace. So that's why we proposed it this way.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yep,
may
thank you,
respond.
Mr. Mayor. Councilor Manning Martin,
Thank you.
please.
No, I completely understand and follow along that this is how things were done because of COVID. I lived it, and I understand that. And it was expeditious, but COVID is over, and we're being asked to make a change, and that is my concern, that we did lots of things differently, and the public wasn't allowed in this building, and we had to operate by Zoom. We didn't have public meetings, and we all did our best to keep government and business moving forward, but a lot of things fell by the wayside, and a lot of public input was left out. I'm not blaming anyone for that. I understand that things had to have been done differently, and we all work together to do things differently. But I don't think that this means that now that COVID is over, we go back to doing things the way things were done in COVID, because we made those changes because we had to do things without physical and interactions with people, and that is over. And I want to be able to go back to ways that we include the public with what happens in their community, and not shut down opportunities for them to be heard about it. They can be heard, we can disagree, we can agree, and we can make a decision. But to say that this is how we did it during COVID and it was great, well, we did things because of COVID, because we had to stop physical contact, and when there were restrictions that we had to adhere to, and there was no getting around that. But COVID is over, and I'd like to be able to not jump off from where we left off with COVID for fear that we're going to leave people out of the process. That's all I'm suggesting, Mayor, is that is what I think that change does by not having it come to the council for a vote. We can continue to streamline things, because coming to the council is the public hearings, where the public gets to speak and be heard. So we can continue to streamline it, much like what Councillor Rosendahl touched upon. If it's an annual thing, once they go through the process once, we can quickly, we don't have to have them do it annually, we can quickly just approve it, much like we do with an entertainment license at the end of the year. You want your outdoor dining again? Boom, it's done. So there's streamlining, but they went through a process initially to be heard. And then there should be a process if the outdoor dining was unsuccessful, neighbors didn't like it, they should be able to come to the council and let the council know their concerns at that time. I want to include the public. I don't want to shut them out. That's all I'm suggesting, Mayor. I didn't mean to offend.
No, I
Mayor?
didn't take it as an offense in any way. I just wanted to point out, because you used the word drastic change, I didn't want the perception that we came with something different. We've been operating this way in the last couple of months, like last couple of years. What you say is very valid, and I think the will of the council, that's an issue that can be decided by the council. I'm happy to continue having it run out of my office, but also if the council thinks that it should go through you, I just feel like it's another step in the process. But your points made about things have changed, and the public now, certainly is more access, needs more access to city council meetings. I'm all for that. So no, I think we kind of misread each other there. I'm on board. I just didn't want there to be the perception that we made a drastic change. We just brought forward what we've been operating under the last couple months. I think you make fair points, and whatever the will of the council is, I'd be supportive of that.
Councilor Manning Martin, you all set?
I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Melville, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not a member, and I think you're going section by section, so I guess non-members can, if everybody else on the committee is all set. So there's just a couple of, points and questions I would have for Mr. Bellavance or the mayor. Were there any complaints the last 2 years regarding any of the current temporary outdoor extensions that were given? Did we receive any? We didn't receive any complaints.
No.
And the second thing is, how many of the temporary extensions currently out there are for establishments that hold a liquor license? Is it the majority of them? All of them? Just an order of magnitude, if you want to come up.
Kurt Bellavance, Community Development Director. I would think they were all of them.
Okay.
I know some of them that were didn't have alcohol. We were allowing them to move forward. That may have been one or two, but pretty much all of them were going for alcohol.
Thank you. And so what Councilor Manning Martin has brought up, and the mayor, it's been an issue throughout the state, which is timeliness versus full process. Just a couple of points on the alcohol licensees specifically. They will have to notify abutters if they want to go permanently extend from what they currently have. This is, and they'll have to go in front of the licensing board for that. So they'll have to notify abutters, they'll have to go to a public hearing, and they'll have to do those things. One concern I would have as we talk about process is being redundant. So do we want to have, and I think, obviously there's two buckets, right? There's non-alcohol licensees, and then there's the alcohol licensees, which seems like it's going to be the majority. Do we want to have redundant public hearings, but it wouldn't be in front of the council, it might be in front of the license board? I mean, that's a valid question to ask. And then the second point that's important is to understand that these are going to fall into three buckets of types of establishments. So you're going to have establishments that are going to be using their own private, think of some restaurants that are using, they've found that a portion of their parking lot can now be used for outdoor dining, and they own that. So that's their private space that they own. They're just extending onto that. The second bucket is entities that are moving in, that lease their property, that are moving into lease space. So think of the North Shore Mall. So they don't own it, but they got to extend their lease, and they got to go through that process. And the third is using public space. So the question is, what kind of transparency do you want for the public space side, extensions there? But all of these would, if they hold a license, would require that sort of public hearing, unless we want to also include the council into it. But one of the big points of emphasis I would make is when we had done the last 2 years, is there was going to be notification to the council anytime one of these extensions was approved. And I think that's an important part for at least informing the council. So I just wanted to bring up those kind of points of emphasis that I've seen, and I thought would be helpful based on what was brought up here.
Councillor Turco, then Councillor Daigle, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My initial question was for Councilor Manning Martin, but since Councilor Melville spoke, I had a question through you to Councilor Melville. You mentioned abutter notifications, but that would only be in the instance of alcohol licensing, not for outdoor dining itself. So this ordinance doesn't address any required abutter notification. Correct, so you're referring to just in the sense of alcohol?
With that, yeah, they would have to do it if they, as a portion of their, through you, Mr. Chairman, through their license. But that's why I wanted to ask Kurt, what's the correlation between the two? I'm not aware of any establishments that hold an alcohol license that have not extended their alcohol service.
Thank you. My initial question was for Councilor Manning Martin, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, through you to Councilor Manning Martin. You briefly touched on it, but so your intention would be, let's say there's 18 this year, 18 people that applied for outdoor dining, I believe the mayor said, to have those 18 come to us one time, and then it would operate on a yearly basis just as a transfer. So these people wouldn't have to come year by year by year after that. Thank you. That's all I wanted to make sure of.
Thank you, Councillor Turco. Councillor Daigle, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think Councillor Melville, as well as Turco, and Councillor Manning Martin answered some of this, but I think some of this is partially addressed with Section 9. In cases where the applicant's plan involves the use of public property, a copy of the application will also be provided to the appropriate ward councillor in which the subject property is located. So that does give the ward councillor the ability to share the information with their constituents. But pulling up an abutters list for a liquor license application, you can do it online. So maybe the first time around when someone's applying, one of the departments just notifies the abutters, and that covers everyone. So that way they have the opportunity to weigh in with the mayor or licensing or whoever it is. Just a thought. Thank you.
Councillor Daigle. Councillor Peach, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a question overall through you to the mayor, to Mr. Bellavance. Will this have any impact on the restaurants that currently have what I would consider permanent outdoor dining that existed pre-COVID? There are a few restaurants throughout the city that they have, permanent patios that they've always operated outdoor dining on. Does this change their process of what they currently do?
No, that wouldn't. I think there was only a handful of those businesses that existed, and they would operate under what their current agreement was.
Any other councillors? All right, so after discussion with the clerk, I think we should go from, as a committee, vote section by section, and if there's any language on each section that would like to change, such as what you spoke about, Councilor Manning Martin. Do you have language that you'd like to?
Well, that is one way we could go, or we could have a thorough discussion and leave it in committee, and maybe the mayor and community development can take our suggestions and our comments and rework it, maybe bring something back that's works for everybody.
Mr. Mayor, when is the extension through? We're not in a severe time crunch, right?
It has been extended till April of 2023, so there's no rush. I think Councilor Manning Martin is correct. I mean, we can take our time here and work through these issues and have discussions on the different topics. So I'm good with that. I didn't expect that we were going to vote tonight. I think that there was a number of issues that need to be discussed. And the first one, I think, that was pointed out is a very good discussion point. So that works for us.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Bellavance, so we're going to go section by section. You take some notes and we'll reconvene and look at your changes. So that's section 1. Anybody on, before we move to section 2, any further on section 1? Section 2, design and appearance. Councilor McGinn, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you want me to repeat what I had said earlier with respect to section 2?
No, I don't think it's necessary. Yeah, you should, so the council can hear it, although Mr. Bellavance already has your notes, but I think just so the council can hear that and discuss that, please.
Sure. So this is in that section. The sentence starts on the 6th line down. It says, perimeter treatments, umbrellas, furniture, and trash receptacles shall be supplied by the applicant and shall be maintained in a safe and sanitary manner by the applicant. And the suggested addition is, and must be removed promptly at the end of the season.
Any comments on Councilor McGinn's suggestions? Mr. Bellavance, you have the gist of what Councilor McGinn was talking about?
Yeah, we think that's a great suggestion.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Anything else in section 2, Councilor McGinn?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Anything in section 2? Okay, there being none, section 3, pedestrian and wheelchair passage. Opening it up to any councilors. Councilor Manning Martin, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would suggest, and I would like to see in somewhere in probably this section, that the Disability Commission be included in these discussions to review, especially if it's public property or if it's on sidewalks, but to have it be reviewed by the Disability Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As a member of the commission, I think that's a great idea. So thank you, Councilor Manning Martin. Anybody have any comments on that item? There
If I
being
could,
no,
Mr. If I could, Mr. Chairman, I think that's
Mr.
a great,
Mayor?
I agree. I think that's a great suggestion, great addition.
Thank you. Any more on section 3? If not, we go to section 4, outdoor food preparation. Anybody? Any councilors? There being none, section 5, alcoholic beverages. Councilors? No comments, there being none on section 5. Section 6, entertainment. Councilor McGinn, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The suggestion is just to add 2 words at the beginning. And that you'll note that this would be consistent with how the section 5 begins. So it would be approval of an outdoor seasonal dining area, rather than just to say an outdoor seasonal dining area. So I'm adding 2 words, approval of.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Mr. Bellavance, you okay on that? I'll assume, unless you say something, that we're okay. Thank you. Anything else on section 6, councilors? Councilor Peach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just as a question of clarity, if an establishment has an entertainment license, is there an avenue for them to extend it once they have this? outdoor dining permit or license, whatever we're calling it?
Bellavance, please.
Yes, there's an opportunity for them to, whichever the board is, the city council or the mayor's office, to get approval for outdoor entertainment. That would either come back to the city council. I'm not familiar with the exact process. I think it's for the city council and maybe the Sunday. Is that what the mayor's? Sunday goes for the mayor. So those processes would remain in place.
Clerk Danforth has some input on that, please. Thank you.
So currently, entertainment licenses are for indoor use only. Someone can apply for a temporary one-day license for outdoor entertainment, but there is nothing that would be available for someone who wants to, say, put a TV outside for the season for entertainment.
Councilor Peach, any other comments? You, Councilor Peach. Any other comments on Section 6, entertainment? We'll move to Section 7, smoking. Any comments on Section 7, smoking? There being none, we'll move to Section 8, temporary seating relief. Any councilors? There being none, Section 9, application procedure. Councilor McGinn, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this kind of goes to a point raised by Councilor Rossignol in his comments. So this would be an addition to the first sentence. And I would suggest that the sentence read, application for outdoor seasonal dining shall be submitted to the Community Development Department anytime after January 1st of the year in which the seasonal approval is sought.
Comment on Councilor McGinn's recommendations? Councilor Rossignol, please.
Should there be an added expectation of an approval date?
McGinn, please.
Through you to Councilor Rossignol, I think basically somebody could apply anytime during the year. If you wanted to, technically, if you wanted to just capture the last couple of months of a season, you could apply. So if you narrow it down too much, where you have to apply in January, you might be limiting the applications. So I thought that if you just indicated when they would start taking the applications, and then it's implied you're not going to take an application any later than the end of the season.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Councilor Rossignol, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wondering, so regardless of when they apply, there should be a turnaround time of expectation. So even if it wasn't a date, even if it was in a month's time frame, so to your point, Councilor McGinn, if they apply in July just to capture the end of the summer or fall or whatever season they look at, I just want whoever's petitioning to have this, to have an expectation of when they'll be able to understand yes or no.
Thank you, Councilor Rossignol. Councilor McGinn, please.
I understand where you're going with that, Councilor Rossignol. I think there's some variables there that might be outside, the span of control, meaning, I suppose you could word it upon receipt of complete and accurate application information, if they haven't submitted their insurance information or the sketch is inadequate, or, it could be the applicant that's actually gating the process, not the city. And I think should it be decided that this goes in the direction of a council approval versus a mayoral approval, then there might be timing of to set a hearing and so forth. So I think it might get a little tricky, kind of nailing down what that time frame might look like. I wouldn't have any reservation with putting some kind of broad language in there that indicates that it's intended for this to be a relatively swift process. But I wouldn't want to create the language such that it makes it unachievable in all cases.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Councilor Rossignol, you okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Turco, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Council Rossignol. Council McGinn already addressed what I was going to say, but if we do go with the council approval, it'd be very difficult to set an end date because of, application timelines and deadlines. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Turco. Councilor Daigle, then Councilor Peach, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the mayor, and I'm not sure if this is the appropriate section to ask this question, but is there, I didn't see it in the application, is there a fee as part of this application, or does that come in through licensing and ABCC, I guess, assuming that they're having liquor?
We as a city, for the temporary, have not been asking for a fee. I don't intend to do that. The Liquor Licensing Board and some other boards may have fees that they're required to, but no, I wouldn't be asking for additional funding for this. I don't think that's appropriate.
Thank you.
Councilor Daigle. Councilor Peach, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Along the lines of Councilor Rossignol and Councilor McGinn of adding the dates and some, fluid timelines to this. I know we discussed in previous meetings about the renewals of other licenses, entertainment licenses, making sure that when applicants come back for a renewal, maybe being more stringent, maybe putting in writing, renewals need to be submitted by a certain timeline. So I would just put that suggestion out for the mayor and Mr. Bellavance. Maybe we take a look at that so when someone does get approved, the renewal needs to be in. I don't think we'd want to wait till January 1st to start getting renewals through April if they're looking to open in April. So maybe have a shorter, more stringent timeline for renewed applications.
Thank you, Councilor Peach. Mr. Mayor, please.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a good topic, and so I think kind of hearing the will of the council, if we want to kind of change that more to where it be city council approval than mayor approval, maybe we can work on some time frames that we think could work. Be a little tricky just in terms of if there's a new applicant, kind of figuring something like that out. But I think we can maybe put our heads together and come up with some options that we could present at the next meeting, that some time frames that would make sense.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any more discussion on Section 9? There being none, Section...
You're on 9?
We were on 9, yes. I think. Were we on 9?
Okay, yes.
Go ahead, Councilor Manning.
So the line in question would be in cases where the applicant plan involves the use of public property, copy of the application will also be provided to the ward councilor. If we don't make that change, I would prefer that we continue to notify the public. And if we were to have the special hearing, the initial special hearing, that would be, the normal practice, to notify all the public and not just through one person being the ward councilor, and put the onus on that councilor to let everybody know what's happening. So I'd prefer to maintain it that a public notice goes out, and that would cover notifying the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Manning Martin. Any comments? Mr. Bellavance, you okay on recommended changes? Thank you. There being no more discussion on Section 9, Section 10, plan requirements. Any councilors? Councilor Peach, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the mayor. At the end where it says outdoor seating proposed for parking lot shall not occupy more than 25% of the required parking spaces. Do you know, or to Mr. Bellavance, some restaurants that have been operating under the COVID state extension of this outdoor dining, they don't currently meet the regular, like their special permit has allowed them to have smaller amount of spaces than normally allowed. Are we going by what the zoning actually is for the 25%, or what their special permit is for 25%? Because if they can only have 25% of their parking, like what they're supposed to have, and they only have 75% to begin with, it's not giving them much space for an outdoor dining.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's something we over the last couple of years, we've just really worked with those individual restaurants and eateries to try to come up with something that made sense for them and for their needs in terms of providing seating, but also for parking. So, yeah, it's a tough one to really put. We wrestled whether to include that or how to word that. But I really think that it has to, it's difficult to put a definite number to, and it's really something that just has to be a work in progress and meeting with the owners of the property and try to come up with something that makes sense for them. I'm open to suggestions on that.
Thank you,
Councillor
Mr.
Peach,
Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just, I think it's great, and I think we should continue to work with the restaurants in the city and kind of just do what makes sense, because every situation is different. So if that's the case in the move forward, I would suggest that we don't put a number on it.
Thank you, Councillor Peach. Councillor McGinn, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Councilor Peach. Yeah, I think agree. That's a sticky one, particularly as the season has gotten longer. So, I mean, now you're talking about, I mean, the original season was 4 months, you know, when you look back at the original zoning, I think. And then for COVID reasons, it was being stretched on both ends, and now we're talking about an 8-month season effectively. So for the majority of the year, you're allowing to relax the parking requirement by a significant portion. For all intents and purposes, it's almost a permanent reduction. So it draws into question, you know, where if it was believed through a special permit process or just simply through the obtaining of a building permit or a variance in some cases, that parking was adequate, you're now kind of overriding all that and saying you can take a substantial portion less than what is required. And I know this came up with a couple of the restaurants with respect to now, they said, okay, there's tents out there and the cars are gonna be put on the street and so forth, so it takes up other parking that might otherwise be available to residents and so forth. So I don't have the answer. But I would concur with you that this one needs to be looked at. I think the mayor's kind of idea here about looking at them on a case-by-case basis and working with the applicant probably is, as a practical matter, the smartest approach to try to find a solution on a case-by-case basis. But it is, I do see it as somewhat problematic, because with a long, nearly year-round season, I mean, it's you're 4 months short of an entire year, you are taking a significant amount of parking out of the equation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor McGinn. Any further comments by councillors? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Turco. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's somewhat related to this section, probably others also. It just kind of dawned on me. If I recall with the tents through COVID, there was a requirement, and I don't recall whether it was for the fire department or the health department, that at least 2 sides of that tent be left open at all times. And I know Sharon had that requirement through health, through you to Mr. Bellavance, if you don't mind. I'm going to put you on the spot. See if you recall this. I don't know if that's a fire department requirement. I don't know if that was a health department requirement only due to COVID. And I don't even know if we need to address it in this document, since if it is addressed by either one of those departments already. But do you recall that requirement that 2 sides be left open at all times?
Yes, I believe that was the health department. The intent of having outdoor dining was supposed to be outdoors and not have a closed environment. So originally it started off with the health department requiring open sides to the tent so that air would be able to circulate.
And do you intend on keeping that requirement with this, and should we address it in this document, or?
It wasn't something that we intended to keep. That was COVID-based, but it's something that anytime there's a tent, they have to get a tent permit through the building department. We have to make sure that it's fire rated through the fire department. And so those 2 departments are the ones that really check the tents and the safety of the tent.
Thank you. I'll leave that up to the council in their final decision whether we want an open side or not.
Any other comments? Thank you, Councillor Turco. There being none, we go to Section 11, Insurance. Councillor McGinn, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, again, as I mentioned earlier, this is, as it's written here, it's no longer construed as a license per se. It's to be viewed as an approved application ultimately. So throughout this section, there is a few references to licensee. So each of those licensee references, I would suggest changing to the word applicant. And then in the second sentence that begins on the third line, I believe it should say the applicant shall, at the time of application, furnish a certificate of insurance to the city evidencing coverage for workman's compensation insurance. And then the second to last line on the sheet where it says accidents which may occur or result from operations under the license, change that to accidents which may occur or result from operations under an approved application. There are also, Mr. Chairman, a couple of references to sidewalk. So there's one such reference in the very last line on this page. So the sentence is, such insurance shall cover the use of all equipment related to the provisions of sidewalk dining services, and I want to add to that sidewalk or other public property dining services, because there could be instances where it's public property but it's not a sidewalk, to make sure that the city is fully covered under this language. Same thing on the next page, second line down. A comprehensive general liability policy shall insure against all claims and demands for bodily injury and property damage with respect to sidewalk. And again, add the words or other public property dining facilities. Again, Mr. Chairman, the same thing, just to make sure that any use of any public property is covered under these insurance provisions and not limited to a sidewalk. And then lastly, Mr. Chairman, the second to last sentence, it's another reference to a license that where it says, this is the third from the last line, begins with of or related to the operations under the license, and consistent with the edit that I suggested previously, I'm suggesting that it say of or related to the operations under an approved application. So again, just to summarize, Mr. Chairman, any changes, any references to licensee, change those to applicant. Any place where it appears the insurance coverage is limited to a sidewalk, broaden that it covers all public property. And that any reference to a license specifically be referred to as an approved application. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Any comments on Councilor McGinn's suggestions, Council? Mr. Bellavance, you okay on Councilor McGinn's recommendations? Thank you. There being none, no further comments on Section 11. We'll go to Section 12, approval by the mayor. McGinn, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, of course, this would be subject to any larger change that might be made if there's an approval required by the council, but as written, the suggestion that I would make is that to add to the very last sentence that and such approval shall be valid for a single season within the current calendar year.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Any comments on Councilor McGinn's suggestions? Any further comments on Section 12, approval by the mayor? There being none, we go to Section 13, retraction. Any, Councilor Rossignol, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To follow along with Councilor Manning Martin and her prior comments, this is exactly, I think, why the council should be looped into this entire ordinance. So if you're looking at it any time the city determines that the operation of the outdoor seasonal dining is not abiding, the policy then approval can be revoked. So what would that process look like? Would it be one department head? Would it be the mayor's authority? How would the public be able to weigh in? I think the only way that this would really be able to be vetted and vetted appropriately would be through the city council, so that the public could then actually have a public forum to say why this needs to change, why they're having a problem with this, and why it's not working out. I think this would be the perfect example of how to get the public involvement in such a case. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Rossignol. Any comments on Councilor Rossignol's suggestions? Councilor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess from my perspective, I'm just trying to get I know the mayor and Mr. Bellavance will be doing some edits. Are we looking at doing like a full special permit hearing for each one of these if somebody applies for it? Because when we say we want to notify the this is a general, I just want to get atmospheric so we can all we understand the order of magnitude of what we want to do, but we can have a meeting where, are we saying that they would just advertise it in a public, public notification in the advertisement, or do we want to know? I mean, I guess that's just kind of what I'm looking at, because if we do go down that road, I think it's also, it's a logistical between now and next year. We would probably want to make sure people understood that that's what we were intending to do, so that we don't get become a choke point. But I just kind of want to get an idea of what we're thinking of when we say we want that kind of a council meeting. Are we treating this like a special permit hearing? Because there's a whole different avenue. And then when we revoking, what would that look like with it now? Because we do have special permits for extensions of outdoor seating. We just did one for the Wardhurst last year. It was they were putting their patio in. But if we were to do that, the retraction would probably mirror that. That's why I bring this up. So,
Thank you, Councilor Melville. Councilor Peach, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the mayor and Mr. Bellavance. Do you know how other cities operate, other comparable cities? I've heard just a lot about surrounding towns and outdoor dining, and how there's a reason other towns around us had outdoor dining pre-COVID, because it was a streamlined, easier process. I want us to remain competitive with our surrounding areas, so I'm just wondering, do you know offhand how the other cities operate, if it's a council process or just through the mayor's office?
I think a number of cities and towns are going to be having this very discussion, because I think there's excellent points to consider here. During COVID times, I believe that the majority, I can't think of one that didn't, was kind of run through the mayor's office or the town manager administrator. But I think now that we're hopefully on the other end of that, I think all cities and towns are going to be having this very discussion, because you're right. I don't want to lose a competitive advantage. I don't want to, cause additional steps for applicants to take. And I think we can come up with a way that this could work and we can meet all the needs. But I'm not aware of any city in town that, at least during COVID days, that it ran through the city council. I believe it was through, at least in the group that I'm a part of, the association I'm a part of, it was handled through the mayor's office.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do you, and maybe you can just ask your colleagues, pre-COVID times is what I'm thinking of. I know outdoor dining certainly existed in Salem pre-COVID, just what their process looked like pre-COVID.
I agree, absolutely. We can do that and find out. We didn't dig too deep prior to COVID days, but I think we can get that information.
Thank you, Councilor Peach. Any further comments? Any comments? There being none, we're going to move from Section 13 to Section 14, amendments. Any comments, councilors, on Section 14 amendments? There being none, Section 15, effective date. I think we've got that, we've talked that out. Councilor McGinn, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Assuming there's no inputs on Section 15, I just wanted to make another general comment or request. In what was submitted for the package, we didn't get an actual copy of the application, so the request would be that in the next round of what is submitted to the council, that it include the actual proposed application. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bellavance, you okay on making sure we get a copy of the, got it, thumbs up, thank you.
If I could,
Mr. Mayor,
Chairman.
please.
Just so, you know, we don't have to decide this today, but certainly as we have further discussed this, but is the intention that all application would still go to community development? Community development would then send it out to the departments, loop our city clerk in, or do you want any applications to go to the city clerk? You know, I think probably that should be established, as well as how that's going to work. Would it be Mr. Bellavance's department sending out notices to all the different departments, or would that be the city clerk's responsibility? I just want to make sure we know who's going to be doing what responsibilities. So, I mean, I don't think we have to decide that at this moment, but that's something that we're going to have to decide and make sure we're clear as to what everybody's responsibility and role is in the process.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any further comments, councilors? There being none, I want to thank everybody for the diligence in getting this ball rolling. We'll wait to schedule the next meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Bellavance. Anything? Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I did want to mention on item B, proposed zoning amendment to the Mill District overlay. We sent you the old memo. That was the incorrect memo that should have came to you regarding this. Rather than submitting it as a late communication, I didn't think that was fair to the council. So we asked our city clerk to push this off till we can coordinate with Chairman Gould as to an upcoming council meeting on this topic. But I want to be very clear. Residential is not a factor in this. This is just opportunity potentially for some more commercial uses, which I think has been discussed in previous meetings. But in terms of residential being extended to other areas on Pulaski Street and this area of Pulaski Street, that is not something that we're bringing forward. I think there was some misinformation that was put around.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor McGinn, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you to the mayor for that clarification. I think, Mr. Chairman, just administratively, since this old memo is, is with us, was in committee, and is no longer valid, I think we should start to take it out of committee and, dispose of it. So I would make a motion to take excuse me for a moment, Mr. Chairman. Take the memo from Kurt Bellavance, Director of Community Development, dated December 3, 2020, out of committee, and that it received no further consideration by the City Council. So moved.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. You heard the motion by Councilor McGinn. Roll call vote, please.
Councilors Rossignol.
On the motion?
Councilor Rossignol.
Thank you. So you don't want this to be addressed again, or you just want the memo to be taken out, just for clarification, Mr. Chairman?
Councilor McGinn, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a memo dated December 3rd, 2020, and it dealt specifically with adding a residential component, which we're now being told is not what is going to be proposed. So it's no longer being pursued by the administration. I just want to dispose of this, and it's going to be replaced by, I believe, what we have as late communication 5. So we're going to have something that will replace this December 2020 memo.
Councillor Rosendahl, you okay on that?
Yes, thank you.
Again, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Rossignol,
No.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Daigle,
Present?
Gould.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-1.
Thank you, councilors. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Thank you. We are adjourned.
Good evening. I'd like to now call the meeting of the Aggregate Industries Committee to order. The only item on our agenda this evening is the review of Aggregate Industries 2021 annual report. In attendance this evening, we have committee members Councillor Rossignol and Councillor Turco, who will be sitting in for Councillor Gamache at my request. We're also joined by Councillors Gould, Councillors Manning Martin, Councillor Peach, Councillor McGinn, and Councillor Daigle. We're also joined here this evening by Jarrett Temple, the Aggregate Industries Regional Manager of Land and Environment. He's here to answer any questions that any of us might have or address any issues that come up. At this time, I'm going to just try to do a summary. This annual report is over 700 pages, so the intent is not to go through every detail, but to hit on some of the high points that are important for their compliance, as well as just issues that tend to arise. Special permit granted by the Peabody City Council in October 2002 requires Aggregate Industries to file an annual report with the city, which they did, and this report was previously received and referred to this committee. Tonight's our opportunity to make comments regarding the 2021 annual report, as well as recommend any changes. Could I have a committee member move under suspension of the rules to accept late communications 2 and 7, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Rossignol. You've heard the motion of Councilor Rossignol. On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Thank you. Just for clarification, late communication 2 is the review from the Department of Public Services, and late communication number 7 is the Board of Health, Sharon Cameron, Director's review of the annual report. As I noted, the 2021 report is over 700 pages and is quite detailed, includes many technical reports regarding air, water, and noise tests as required by the special permit. I thought it'd be helpful to provide a somewhat brief overview of the major areas of the report, as well for council members as well as members of the public. For a brief overview, the Aggregate Industries facility located on Russell Street has 2 main operations. Number 1, the quarry operations involving blasting, harvesting, and crushing of stone into different sizes for sale to third parties. And number 2, the other main operation is the asphalt batch plant. The asphalt operations involve mixing of stone, sand, liquid asphalt, and recycled asphalt product to form hot mix asphalt. Customers arrive at this facility to have the hot mix asphalt loaded into their trucks for off-site delivery. In terms of blasting, which is obviously the biggest component in terms of neighborhood challenges through the years, and obviously living right next to an active quarry that blasts. There were 10 individual blast events at the quarry from April 20th to September 30th, producing 235 tons of aggregate. The Peabody Fire Department had a representative present at each blast to monitor for safety. There were no written property damages submitted by residents to the Peabody Fire Department. However, the fire department did receive 2 phone calls related to blasting levels, which residents felt generated noise and vibrations higher than usual. The first call was made by a Wentworth resident on May 13th, and the second call was made by a Truman Road resident on September 30th. We typically hold a meeting with Aggregate Industries prior to the start of the blast season at the quarry, which also includes the blasting contractor, the fire department, as well as neighborhood representatives. We did hold an in-person meeting this year on March 23rd for the first time in a couple years, as well as a virtual one for people who could not attend in person. We discussed this report overview, neighborhood concerns, as well as the proposed blast plan for the quarry in 2022. The blast plan for 2022 of this year is for approximately 20 blasts at the quarry. The first blast in 2022 was held on March 31st, and the most recent one took place on April 21st. At this time, I'm not aware of any neighborhood concerns or resident concerns addressed to the fire department or through me. In terms of noise and air quality monitoring, the memo that Sharon Cameron and the Board of Health prepared provides an overview of compliance, the Aggregate's compliance with noise and air quality data attributable to the activities at the quarry, as well as the asphalt plant operations. The noise associated with the quarry activities were measured in sound compliance studies in both June and November of 2021. Readings taken at 6 locations to the west and the south of the facility with both quarry and asphalt plants in full operation. For both testing periods, average noise associated with these activities was at or below the threshold established by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, which is 10 decibels above background levels. But the Board of Health and the report did note, although the average noise levels during the quarry's operational period did not exceed the DEP level of 10 decibels above background noise, 3 locations showed levels above 10 decibels for several hours. In the June testing, 9 Styles Drive had 5 hours where the noise level was 10 decibels above the background noise. In November testing, the location at 24 Lisa Road had 2 hours where the noise was 10 decibels above background. At the same November test date, the 21 Styles Drive location was at or above the 10 decibel level for 8 hours, including 3 hours at 11 decibel above background. As a result of these results, there were 3 recommendations from the Board of Health regarding additional noise mitigation and setting new standards. I'll make those as part of my motion, or I guess I've asked Councillor Rosenthal to consider them. In terms, next, I guess, area I want to tackle, which is certainly important given the amount of water that this facility produces as part of its business. The water mass balance results show that this facility discharged 107,929,000 gallons in 2021. And I should note that there's been was considerable work done to prevent discharge and runoff into the Norris Brook Parkway. They had to spend quite a bit of money due to some issues many years ago. However, that water does ultimately go into our drinking water, so it's important that we do have testing and the precautions that have been taken. In terms of the groundwater sampling, it was conducted by their consultant BSC Group in April of 2021, which is great since the Department of Public Services had recommended last year that the sampling be done in spring when it's the best chance for the wells to have adequate groundwater table. Unfortunately, in 2020, it was too dry when the sampling had been taken, so that didn't really help anything. So I'm glad that this is done. BSC Group concluded that no significant change in groundwater had occurred at the site, and there were no reportable quality parameters under the Massachusetts Contingency Plan 310 CMR 40. And per the BSC report, no violations of the NPDES permit were filed in 2021. There were 3 recommendations in the DPS memo, which once again I will ask Councillor Rossignol to address. I guess in summary, and certainly in just a brief overview of the annual report, this special permit has been in place to provide protections for the neighborhood, and we still have a challenging situation for a residential neighborhood that sits right next to an active quarry with regular blasting, rock crushing, as well as significant truck traffic coming to and from the plant to pick up aggregate as well as asphalt. And in general, I've in my 4 years working with this company, the representatives have been professional and responsive in terms of addressing residents' concerns, which is the ultimate. When something happens, we want them to not only address it, but also make sure it doesn't happen. Unfortunately, there were 2 incidents where the hours of operation were not followed. The first one was on October 15th, when a truck entered the facility at past the 4 o'clock closing time, which was unfortunate. I was notified by a resident. Certainly the plant manager was also. I also addressed it with senior aggregate managers, including Mr. Temple, who responded, and we made it clear that we can't have that. Unfortunately, in November 2021, multiple trucks from Atlantic Trucking began entering the facility at 6 o'clock, which was before the approved opening date time. So, once again, both of these incidents were raised to plant management, and they were apologetic. They certainly are violations. At this time, I don't feel it's necessary to try to do a show cause hearing. My intent on this is to hold them accountable where they have agreed to this special permit and protect residents. On that last topic, Monday of this week, I was contacted by 2 residents on Styles Drive who were concerned about the smell of asphalt coming from the facility, which is not typical, they said, but there was wind that day. I did go over there to Styles Drive, which was around 10:30, 11 o'clock, and it smelled like I was doing paving during pothole season, so it was overwhelming. The good news is I reached out to plant manager Sharon Clancy, who did address the situation. They added material to reduce the odor. I certainly would hope that they would regularly use that when wind is carrying greater than normal so that residents don't have it coming through their closed windows and residences. So that's certainly not a condition I'll make, but that's just, I would say, good business practices, obviously. And I do want to comment before, I have a couple things that I wanted to make sure that I addressed, but also, although it's not a public meeting, I'd also like to provide the opportunity for any residents who might want to make any comments or be heard. And at this time, is there anyone here in the hall who'd like to speak at this time? Seeing no one, is there anyone on Zoom? Okay, no one on Zoom. So that's good. I want to make sure people, and certainly we work closely with the residents to make sure that their concerns are addressed. At this time, do any committee members have any questions or comments at this time regarding the annual report? Councilor Turco?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make note that late 7 is not on our desks. I did get a chance to read it via the email copy, but I believe Councilor Daigle may have, did you get copies of late 7? Have gone and get copies of that for us.
Thank you. I apologize. I actually had them, but I thought it was already done, so I apologize. That's on me, so I'll thank you, Councilor Daigle. My wife is going to kill me that you're doing this for me, but thank you. I apologize for not getting that early so you could all have a copy, but we got it. Just to clarify, the memo was a revision to what was in your packages from Sharon Cameron, and it was just a slight enhancement of the particular properties that had the decibel level concerns. So there's not a substantial change, but just for those of you that didn't get it, obviously get a copy of it to maybe read it by email. Thank you, Councilor Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any other councilors who'd like to speak at this time or ask any questions? Okay, seeing no one, Councilor, sorry, one last thing, I apologize. Certainly with the challenges we had over the last 2 years with the pandemic, want to certainly work with you folks to try to get, an opportunity for the neighborhood neighborhood residents on the committee, as well as other councilors, and as well some of the members of the city boards and departments that oversee your operation, come out for a site visit and just kind of, show them your operation when convenient and certainly when business allows. But I'll probably just send you some dates that might work best for you folks.
We absolutely agree. It was challenging getting that pushed through at the corporate level. We've been trying to do this for a couple of years now. We'll work with you, and we'll set a date, and we'll make sure that whoever wants to get a look at it has an opportunity.
Thank you. I appreciate that. At this time, with no further questions, I'd ask Councilor Rosenau if he'd like to make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And before I make the motion, is there anything else you'd like to add that Councilor O'Neill has omitted?
No, I just want to extend our gratitude to Councilman O'Neill and Chief Daley. The communication between the town, the fire department, the police department even, and Aggregate Industries has been excellent, and I feel it's been greatly improved under their leadership. Historically, we didn't have such a streamlined process for sharing information, especially when it comes to complaints. We like to address complaints when they happen directly with the people who are being affected. This is something it's new and it shouldn't be, but we make every effort we can to make sure that if something's happening and we can mitigate it or stop it from happening, we take all action we can. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Temple.
Thank you. With that being said, I'd like to make a motion. The 2021 annual report submitted by Aggregate Industries complies with the requirements of the special permit granted to Aggregate Industries. I move that the City Council approve Aggregate Industries 2021 annual report with the following conditions. Aggregate Industries should conduct additional noise mitigation efforts to ensure that the 10 decibel increase above background noise is not exceeded for any location for any period of time. Number 2, background noise levels were last established in August of 2012. The city recommends that a new set of background noise levels be established in 2022. Number 3, aggregate noise management plan was last revisited in February of 2005. The city recommends that this plan be updated in 2022 in incorporation any new best practices. Number 4, have the Department of Public Service be sent a hard copy of the 2022 annual report and each annual report moving forward. Next, groundwater sampling from wells should continue to be done in the springtime period. This would give best chances for the wells to have an adequate groundwater table to help ensure that the sample can be taken and analyzed. And last, the spill prevention, control, and countermeasure plan, the SPCC, included in the annual report, is stamped and dated by the engineer. It should be signed and dated from Aggregate Industry Management. So moved.
You've heard the motion by Councillor Rosano. Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Rossignol,
Yes.
Turco,
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
You've heard the motion. All in favor? None opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, council. The city council will convene on Thursday, April 28th to hold a regular meeting at 7:30 p.m. for the purpose of discussing any and all business via in-person and remote participation in accordance with Chapter 40A of the Massachusetts General Laws and Sections 20A, B, and C of the Acts of 2021, signed into law by Governor Baker on June 16th, 2021. Alternative public access to this meeting shall be provided in the following manner. 1, this meeting is being televised by Peabody Access Television on cable channel 9. 2, real-time public comment during public hearings can be addressed to the Peabody City Council using the Zoom virtual meeting software for remote access. Users may view the meeting and make comment or question the chair via the audio option. Please visit www.peabody-ma.gov for Zoom information. This meeting is being taped by Peabody Access Television and is also being recorded by the City Council stenographer. Please rise for a moment of silence and our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Move approval of the rest, Mr. President. You heard the motion from Councillor Gould to receive item late communication 8 as the updated minutes. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councillor Gould.
President, if I, under suspension of the rules, I'd like to go to 7A, recommendations by the mayor for approval to various boards. There happen to be 3 tonight. Mary Martin as auditor for a 3-year, I'm sorry, are we okay?
Yeah, definitely. I was planning on going out of order, Councillor, so I'll take it away. If you want to make a motion under suspension of the rules for those nominations.
Yes, please. First is Mary Martin as the city auditor to a continuation of 3-year term. Second is Mr. Kevin Holden for the Housing Authority, a 3-year term. And third is Len Rowland, Historical Commission, for a 2-year term. So moved, Mr. President.
You heard the motion from Councillor Gould. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. President, would Mr. Holden like to speak? I'd like to embarrass him. No? No? Okay.
You got Coach Holden. Do you have anything you'd like to say? All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
All right.
President.
So we have a motion on the floor to receive and approve the nominations. We'll take a roll call vote.
Councilors Gould.
Yes.
Rossignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Mr. President, I'd like to say thank you, Kevin, for your service. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councillor. And I would agree. Kevin Holden has been a major part of a lot of young men's lives going through the high school years and years ago, right, Kev? As the lacrosse coach and a great mentor. So it's welcome. I think it's a great nomination. All right, we're going to be moving on to item 4, hearings. The clerk will read the public notice.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, April 28th, 2022, at 7:30 p.m. in the Frank L. Wigan Auditorium, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., and remotely via Zoom on the application from AM&C Romano, Inc., DBA Trackside Bar and Grill, 30 Warren Street, Peabody, Mass., requesting an entertainment license for non-live entertainment, specifically television and internet radio at said 30 Warren Street, Peabody, Mass. For remote participation using the Zoom platform, please visit www.peabody-ma.gov under Calendar on the homepage, or contact the City Clerk's office. Peabody City Council, Councilor Ryan Melville, City Council President.
Thank you. Would the applicant please come up to the podium and just give us a brief description of what you're looking to do?
Hello.
And your name and address for the record, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Thank
Monica
you.
Romano, and so it's 30 Warren Street in Peabody. So we're just here just to get the entertainment license. All we have right now is 4 TVs there. I put in radio just in case, for whatever reason in the future, if we'd like to have it. So that's about it.
Thank you. Is anybody in the audience here to speak in favor? Is anybody in the audience here to speak in favor? Is anybody on the Zoom platform? Nobody on the Zoom. Anybody in the audience to speak in opposition? Anybody here to speak in opposition? And there's nobody on the Zoom. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. As indicated by the applicant, this is very straightforward. It's a non-live entertainment license. I spoke with Ms. Romano. There's nothing more to it. I'm fully supportive of this. This time I defer to other councilors.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Any other councilors? Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to say thank you for being such a prominent member of the community. You do a nice job for your business, and you represent the city very well. And it's a good reputation coming from that, so thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Gould. Any other councilors? Councilor Manning Martin and then Councilor Peach.
Yes, I just have to say that I love the trackside, but in the winter, my favorite part is there is not one drafty seat in that house. So I thank you for not chincing on the heat in the winter. It's very warm in there, and I like it.
Councilor Peach.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to echo my fellow councilors. It's a great establishment, and wonderful to see a fellow Peabody High graduate, Monica. We graduated together, running a great establishment, and her family lives in Ward 3. So happy to see the business continue there and be a staple for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, councilors. Any other councilors? No, seeing none, Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to close public hearing.
You heard the motion from Councilor McGinn to close the public hearing. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to approve the application from AMC Romano, Inc., to be doing business as Trackside Bar and Grill, 30 Warren Street, Peabody, Mass., requesting an entertainment license for non-live entertainment, specifically television and internet radio at said 30 Warren Street, Peabody, Mass. So moved.
You heard the motion from Councilor McGinn. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Gould.
Yes.
Rossignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Peach.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you and congratulations. All right, we're going to move on to item 4B, special permit for Robert Tukmanian, I apologize, 218 Newbury Street. The clerk will read the public notice.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody, acting as the special permit granting authority, will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, April 28, 2022, at 7:30 p.m. in the Frank L. Wigan Auditorium, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., and remotely via Zoom, on the application from Robert Tukmanian, 11 Pine Tree Drive, Saugus, Mass., for a special permit for the sale of automobiles at 218 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass., as filed in accordance with Sections 4.2.5, 6.1, and 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance. For remote participation using the Zoom platform, please visit www.peabody-ma.gov, under Calendar, on the homepage, or contact the City Clerk's office. Peabody City Council, Councilor Ryan Melville, City Council President.
Thank you. And can you just give us your name and address for the record and what you're trying to do? Just push the button.
Good evening. My name is Robert Tukmanian. I'm looking for seeking a Class 2 motor vehicle license at 218 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass.
Okay, and Councilor O'Neill. I'm sorry, excuse me. Is anybody in the audience here to speak in favor? Is anybody in the audience here to speak in favor? You want to speak in favor? Yeah, you got to come up to the to the podium and speak. Give your name and address for the record. Okay. All right. Well, there we go. We got anybody else in the audience here to speak in favor? Anybody here to speak in opposition? Anybody here to speak in opposition? Anybody on the Zoom? Nobody's on the Zoom. All right. Councilor O'Neill, who will be taking this in for Councilor Gamache.
Thank you, Council President. Yeah, Councilor Gamache was unable to attend tonight's meeting. We did speak, Councilor Gamache and I, and certainly went through some of the main issues on this. I did have a couple of questions regarding the memo that was communication from Andrew Levin, Senior Planner from the Department of Community Development and Planning, 8F, and would just like to kind of run through some questions, if that's possible, to the applicant.
Do you want to receive it?
Oh, yes, apologize. Motion to receive?
You heard the motion from Councillor O'Neill. All in favor? Any opposed to the vote? Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. To the applicant, some of the I guess, general questions that we just wanted to clarify regarding snow storage on the property. If you could outline, there's no property, there's no specific location designated for that, so where do you intend to have that take place?
The intention for snow removal is the corners of the property. If you look at the site plan, the top right corner of the property has an area we could dedicate that to snow removal and snow storage, and also the bottom left corner of the parcel as well. Typically that's where the existing business has always been pushing it. We intend to continue using their methods and their locations for snow removal. And if there's ever a situation where there's an abnormal amount of snow, well, we'd be more than willing to accommodate and dedicate our parking spots to store the additional snow.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to clarify, because not only was it not, you pointed that out great, which is perfect, but you're looking to have more cars that were on the site than in the past owner, so I just wanted to make sure that was something to be contemplated. I guess the other item, there's going to be some conditions that I think need to be put into this special permit, but just wanted to make sure how you, whether you're agreeable to making sure that all deliveries of cars take place on your property and will not take place on Route 1 or any kind of right-of-way.
Yeah, absolutely. The left-hand portion of the property has a large parking lot. We have ample room in between. We can offload vehicles off flatbeds and accommodate all those deliveries over there. So there will be no deliveries that will take place on Route 1.
Thank you very much. That's very important. That'll be part of the conditions that I would intend to make. A couple other few items that I just wanted to run through. In terms of on the property, there's a 400 square foot office, and then also another office space. I guess Community Development had a great question in terms of what are the intended uses for each. I know one will be for your auto sales, but could you just talk about what you intend to use the other one for?
Yep. The 400 square foot office on the left-hand portion of the building, that's going to be dedicated exclusively to auto sales. The 800 square foot office on the right-hand portion of the building, that's the office space for the mechanical business that's occupying the building. So we wanted to differentiate the two offices and keep them separate.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And there were two other items that I guess in terms of making sure that regarding trash, we obviously have concerns about any kind of rodent issues or trash. How do you intend to have a permanent location for the trash that's covered up and protected from any debris coming out or anyone accessing it, animals or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently our dumpster is in the left-hand portion of the parking lot. We're going to move it to the top left corner. You can see it on the site plan. And then we can build an enclosure around it to keep animals, rodents, raccoons, you name it, out of there. So we don't have too many perishable goods or anything that go into that dumpster. It's not like a restaurant, but we will take that extra precaution by fencing it. And also it'll add to the curb appeal so that I guess you don't see an ugly dumpster from Route 1 too. So that's something we can definitely do.
I appreciate that. And just a couple more comments or I guess questions to clarify, and then I'll open up to other councils if they want to ask. There's, I guess, a section of dirt near the southern entrance to the property that's used as, I guess, right now, vehicle parking. Really would like to see if there's some way to improve that, whether it be paving, landscaping, just not have a dirt patch, and that it would ultimately have, parked in pavement and then white lines. Just want to know what you intend to do with that, or is there a way you'll be able to, I guess, improve this, the look of it? Thank you.
We can go ahead and pave that area and clean it up a little bit, and then we can also do some landscaping just to sharpen up the lines and potentially restripe all the spots.
Great, thank you. And I guess the last question I had at this time, it was that just wanted to make sure that the vehicles you intend to have on site would only be for sale or being worked on for this location, no other storage from any other of vehicles from any other business that might be associated or anywhere else? Is that do you have any intention of having any other businesses store vehicles there?
No other businesses. There is the mechanic shop that's occupying the property as well. So it's going to be the mechanic shop and the used car business. Nothing outside of that.
Thank you. And through the president, just want to clarify, that's your mechanic shop, it's not a third party? Okay.
I run the mechanic business. It's Route 1 Auto Service.
So I just wanted to make sure to clarify. I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you, Councilor O'Neill. Any other? Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Councilor O'Neill, could you clarify for me, is the application for 45? And what's the number that it is now, that you're recommending?
Councilor O'Neill.
My understanding is that the previous owner had 13, and part of that was I guess it's just the way he operated his business. He did not want to have other folks, use that. Councilor Gamache has recommended, the applicant applied for more, but Councilor Gamache is comfortable with 25, so that's the recommendation. Sorry for the long answer, but it's 25.
Thank you. Okay, so you came in requesting 46, but it's 25 is the number you're requesting, correct?
Yep. You, sir?
I would just like to clarify. The total number of parking spaces available on the parcel was 46. I believe I requested 35 parking spots for the Class 2 motor vehicle license. I spoke with Dave Gamache, and we were on the same page of bringing that number a little bit down. But the reason why the previous license was for 13 vehicles is because the lease agreement was for 13 spots. So there is ample parking on the site. I'd like to focus more on the auto sales than mechanical, or just operate both businesses. That's why I want to increase that number from 13 a little bit more. I would seek 35, but it's up to the council.
But it was agreed 25, right? So maybe in the future, if you wanted to come back and request additional, that would be the avenue to go. And I'm glad you had mentioned a couple of things that I think you said you were going to spruce up the area, sharpen up the lines of the parking to have it organized. That's great. And you also mentioned to add curb appeal and shrubs. So I'm very happy to hear you say all that. I'm not a big fan of used car lots because they tend not to be concerned about the things that you have mentioned. So I'm very pleased that you are looking to spruce up that area, because although it is Route 1, it is highly traveled, and it's in our city of Peabody. We want to make sure that we raise the bar for all the businesses that we have in our city, to include Route 1. So I'm very pleased that you address those issues. And I think that was my final remark. So, and then hopefully, and if you do have a lot more area there where you believe that you can add more, you can sell more cars and increase that number, then you can approach the ward councilor and do that. So those things being said, I would support this petition. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Manning Martin. Any other Councilor Turco?
Thank you, Mr. President. I noticed where in the application, fire department had no comments, but I had a concern for the fire department, so I reached out to Captain Dowling this morning, and he went up to take a better look at it. And my concern was the fenced-in area that you have in the rear of the building. I wanted to make sure that the fire department has access back there. He said, he asked me if I would recommend a condition on this permit that the fenced-in area, as it stands, remains the same and is not expanded in any way, so that he has the current access available. As it stands, he has access on two sides, which the fire department requires, and he just wants to make sure there's no expansion of that fenced-in area at all.
Yeah, no expansion. We're going to keep everything existing regarding the fence.
Thank you. And Council, through you, Mr. President, to Council, would you be willing to make that a condition on the permit?
Yeah, through the chair, I intend to make that as a condition.
Thank you very much. And also, in that fenced-in area, you have the 3 spaces marked E for employee. What are the other 5? Are just for used cars, or are those for repair vehicles?
Additional overflow, if it happens to be for customers, it can be for customers, it can be for employees, it can be for used cars, just additional spots to ease the flow, you know, on the parcel.
Thank you very much, and good luck.
Any other councilors? Seeing none, Councillor O'Neill.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Motion from Councillor O'Neill. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. This time I'd move to approve the special application from Robert Tukumamian, 11 Pine Tree Drive, Saugus, Mass. For a special permit for the sale of automobiles at 218 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass. Is filed in accordance with sections 4.2.5, 6.1, and 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance with the following conditions. Number one, the permit will be limited to no more than 25 Class 2 motor vehicles. Number two, there will be no outside storage on the property, excluding vehicles for sale. Number three, all delivery of vehicles will take place only on the applicant's property. No delivery of vehicles will take place on Route 1 or that right-of-way. The fence cannot be constructed, the current fence cannot be constructed beyond where it currently exists. Last two conditions are the dirt section at the southern entrance of the property will be improved either by paving with line spaces as well as landscaping. And lastly, the dumpster will be enclosed by fencing to prevent access to rodents or trash coming out of the dumpster. So moved.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. You heard the motion from Councillor O'Neill. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Gould.
Yes.
Rossignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Okay, moving on with item 4C, which would be a Class 2 motor vehicle license. The clerk will read the public notice.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, April 28th, 2022, at 7:30 p.m. in the Frank L. Wigan Auditorium, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., and remotely via Zoom on the application from Robert Tukmanian, DBA Route 1 Auto Sales, 218 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass., requesting use of a Class 2 motor vehicle license at said 218 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass. For remote participation using the Zoom platform, please visit www.peabody-ma.gov under Calendar on the homepage or contact the City Clerk's office. Peabody City Council, Councilor Ryan Melville, City Council President.
Thank you. And we have the applicant from the previous discussion on item 4B here. So this is just your Class 2 motor vehicle license. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I would just like to thank the council.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak in favor? Anybody in the audience wishes to speak in favor? Anybody in the audience wish to speak in opposition? Wish to speak in opposition? Seeing none, Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Once again, as I'm filling in for Councilor Gamache, I have a little bit of an embarrassment. I just wanted to clarify, and I didn't have time due to the schedule today, to ask the clerk. The current license denotes just 2 unregistered motor vehicles. Is that accurate on the current license?
Councilor, that license was rescinded from another property, and so that this license is now up for grabs. It's a new license, so you can put whatever number.
Thank you. I panicked because I was like, why does it say 2? Okay, thank you. Okay. Thank you. I apologize. Obviously, the intent would be to have the same vehicle numbers. I just, excuse me, one more, please. So I obviously have no questions at the time other than making sure that I had the right information. And I guess the intent for other councils is just to say, once again, have the same number of cars, 25. So I'd make that motion, but certainly want to leave it open for other councils at this time.
Thank you, Councilor O'Neill. Any other councilors? Seeing none, Councilor O'Neill.
Move to close the public hearing.
The motion from Councilor O'Neill to close the public hearing. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I'd move to approve the application from Robert Tucumani, doing business as Route 1 Auto Sales, 218 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass., requesting use of a Class 2 motor vehicle license at said 218 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass., with the condition that the limit will be 25 unregistered motor vehicles on the premises at any one time for sale or not for sale, sold or not sold. Said license is specifically for this purpose. So moved.
You heard the motion from Councillor O'Neill. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Gould.
Yes.
Rossignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Peach.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're moving on to item 4D. Councillor Daigle.
I'm going to move to receive late communication number 6, where the applicant is asking for withdrawal without prejudice.
The motion would be to receive and approve. You're the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? To vote? Councillor Daigle, thank you very much. That is withdrawn. So we're moving on to item 4E. And a special permit for Convenient MD LLC, and the clerk will read the public notice.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody, acting as the special permit granting authority, will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, April 28th, 2022, at 7:30 p.m. in the Frank L. Wigan Auditorium, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., and remotely via Zoom on the application from Convenient MD LLC, 632 Washington Street, Southeastern Mass., for a special permit requesting to construct a medical facility specifically as an urgent care at 210 Andover Street, Peabody, Mass., as filed in accordance with sections 4.2.5, 6.1, and 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance. For remote participation using the Zoom platform, please visit www.peabody-ma.gov under calendar on the homepage or contact the City Clerk's office. Peabody City Council, Councilor Ryan Melville, City Council President.
Thank you. And would the applicant state his name, the representative for the applicant, please give us your name and address for the record and just what they're planning on doing.
Good evening. For the record, my name's Ethan Vonzalitis. I'm an attorney practicing law at 246 Andover Street in Peabody, and I am here on behalf of the petitioner with respect to this evening's application. And with me this evening is Mr. Dave Sanderson, a representative of Convenient MD. There happens to be a vacant building pad at the North Shore Shopping Center. It contains about approximately 35,000 square feet of area. It's located adjacent to the Chase Bank building and also directly across from the Tesla car dealership. If granted this evening's special permit, the petitioner's landlord will construct an approximately 5,000 square foot, one-story building, and the petitioner would utilize that building as an urgent care facility doing business as Convenient MD. As you probably know, these urgent care facilities have become very popular, basically because they provide easy access to unscheduled medical care for minor injuries and illnesses that can be treated outside of a hospital or emergency room, and obviously done at a far reduced cost to the patient. As you know, if you do suffer from a minor injury, say you cut your finger, you need stitches, you go to the emergency room, it's probably going to be several hours before you've been seen by a physician. In essence, the petitioner's business treats a variety of issues that are designed for burns, sprains, cuts, bad backs, flu, sore throats, and other various non-life-threatening types of illnesses or injuries. Convenient MD's facilities are opened 7 days a week and all holidays except for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Their hours are from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. All of their facilities are a walk-in. There's no appointment that's necessary. And the average patient's stay when they come to one of these facilities is only about an hour. Not only do the facilities offer a much faster service, but obviously they provide a significant savings to the patient rather than having to go to emergency room. With respect to the petitioner, Convenient MD has been in business now for over 10 years. They do have 32 other locations situated throughout New Hampshire, Maine, and Massachusetts. They do pride themselves in becoming heavily involved in the community in which they're doing business. They provide financial support to many of our local organizations. They offer free medical care to any child that's in need. They offer free flu vaccines to anyone who doesn't have insurance. And they offer a variety of other services to all of our local schools through their nursing departments. I think personally that this clinic would be an excellent addition to our community, being that it's new construction. It will also be a state-of-the-art facility. I do have Mr. Sanderson here with me this evening, and together we'll try to answer any questions that the council may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Vonsley. Any other discussion? Excuse me, I was doing two things at once. Anybody in the audience wish to speak in favor of the applicant? Anybody in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anybody in the audience wish to speak in opposition? Anybody wish to speak in opposition? Seeing none, Councillor Daigle.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to commend the petitioner. This seems to be a very complete application. I am supportive of this application. I think it's a good thing to fill vacant 35,000 square feet and bring in 25 to 30 employees. So the only condition that we have discussed that I would include in this motion is from the Health Department, who's requesting that the applicant must have a plan for disposal of medical waste and sharps, and if the applicant will be dispensing injectable medications, they must provide a no-cost sharps collection option for patients. Otherwise, I will open up the floor to my fellow councilors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Daigle. And Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Attorney Vonzilides. Ethan, Chase Bank, Tesla, and there's an empty pad. Is that what you said? Okay.
If you drive by down 114,
Just turn the mic on, just so everybody can
keep
hear you.
forgetting that. And when you're driving down 114, you go by the entranceway, you'll see that it's all fenced off.
And all is, like you said, it's state-of-the-art.
New construction.
Okay, great. Thank you. No further.
Any other questions? Councillor Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say, as I work at Logan Airport, where there is an on-site medical facility, and it comes in very handy when there's workers' comp injury. So I love the fact of having this at the mall, where there's thousands of employees that work there, and I think it fits perfectly there for an employee with a slight injury that may want to go over to the clinic. But my one question regarding your highlights of your civic and philanthropic commitment, have you guys ever, in any of the cities or towns that you are in, ever worked with the Veterans Affairs Department for medical treatment offered to veterans, whether it be vaccines? I see that you do that with children, and you mentioned the schools, but do you have any partnerships with Veterans Affairs offices locally?
Good evening, Dave Sanderson from Convenient MD. Honestly, I'm not sure, but I'm sure that we'd be willing to. We're very community involved, so I think that's a great idea. I can pass it on. Generally, we get hundreds of solicitations for us to support, so I think that'd be a great idea. I don't know the answer, honestly.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to hear you say it's a possibility so that we can refer it to the Veterans Affairs Office. Thank you very much.
Any other councilors? Seeing none, Councillor Daigle.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I think I need to move to receive late communication number 3.
You heard the motion from Councillor Daigle to receive late communication 3. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
I'm going to move to close the public hearing.
You heard the motion to close the public hearing. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councillor Daigle.
And I am going to move to approve the special permit requesting to construct a medical facility specifically as an urgent care clinic at 210 Andover Street, with the condition that the petitioner must have a plan for the disposal of medical waste and sharps, and if the petitioner will be disposing injectable medications, they must provide a no-cost sharps collection option for patients. So moved.
You heard the motion from Councillor Daigle. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councillors Gould.
Yes.
Rossignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Daigle. Melville.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Best of luck. Okay, moving on to reports of committees. Starting off with the Committee of the Whole, we held a meeting on April 19th. It was attended by Councillor Gould, Rossignol, Manning Martin, Peach, O'Neill, McGinn, Gamache, and Turco. We also had Assistant City Solicitor Barrett with us. I thought it was a fantastic discussion. We went over Articles 1 and 2 of the proposed city charter. Each councillor brought really interesting ideas and perspective. Reporting out of that committee, we had 4 motions, all of which were based off of feedback and requests to the Assistant City Solicitor Barrett. So I'm going to begin reading off those motions. The first motion was made by Councillor McGinn, and it was moved to request under Section 2.3 that the Assistant City Solicitor Barrett provide legal advice to the City Council with regards to the number of members to waive the 1-year cooling off period. That item was carried 9-0, and we will report that as a roll call vote on that. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, we'll roll call vote.
Councilors Gould.
Yes.
Rossignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Peach.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
O'Neill. McGinn.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you. Next motion was made by Councillor McGinn, and it was moved to request that the Assistant City Solicitor Barrett provide the City Council with language for a new section that contemplates nominations and appointments to the City Council may make to certain boards and commissions. That item carried 8-1 with Councillor Peach opposed. I will now make that as a motion. Councillor Manning Martin.
Yes. Could you repeat that?
It was a motion made by Councillor McGinn, moved to request that the Assistant City Solicitor provide the City Council with language for the new section that contemplates nominations and appointments the City Council may make to certain boards and commissions. That item carried again 8-1 with Councillor Peach opposed, and I will bring that as a motion to the full council. Councillor Peach.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the motion, upon further discussion with Attorney Barrett and you, I understand more the drive behind the motion and am now in support of it.
It's fine. Well, we're here today. Essentially, we're going to get some information back is what we're searching for here. So that motion is currently the motion's on the floor, and we'll take a roll call vote.
Councilors Gould.
Yes.
Rossignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Okay. The third motion from the meeting was made by Councillor O'Neill, and it was moved to request the Assistant City Solicitor inform the City Council as to whether a charter objection exists in our current charter and council rules or City Council charter, and so if so, what is the current language? That carried 7-2 with Councilors Gould and Gamache in opposition. I will now bring that motion to the floor. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Gould.
No.
Rossignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-1.
And the fourth and last motion was made by Councillor McGinn, moved to request the Assistant City Solicitor provide language for compensation sections 2-11, filling of vacancies on page 14. That item carried 9-0, and I will bring that to the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Gould.
Yes.
Rossignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
And that will conclude the report of committee. Just as a, I'm sorry, councilors?
Wasn't there more votes than that taken?
There were 4 that there were more votes taken, but they failed. I'm not reporting them out.
Okay.
Oh, are you talking about the changes to the actual items?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I was not gonna, we're not adding those yet because we're gonna keep it in committee in case we have to go back and make edits further, so we're keeping those edits. These were because we needed actions taken by the Assistant City Solicitor.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Clarification.
Yeah,
Okay,
believe
very
me.
good. And can I make a suggestion? It'll be helpful to me anyway.
Okay.
And if, I don't want to create more work for Allison or you, but when we move forward to make these full council votes on the committee of the whole votes, if we have them in advance or in front of us, because there's a lot of pressure.
Definitely can make that happen. That's why I was reading off the, that's why
Yes.
I was reading off the votes. So
Yeah, so if we
people
could
were
have those in
consistent.
advance, so it's easier for us to follow along and recall what the discussion was. Thank you.
Completely agree, and we'll make that happen. Just as a housekeeping item, we had originally intended for May 10th for the next meeting. However, there's another meeting that evening from, was it CPC, that wasn't in the book when we originally looked at it, but it's a regularly scheduled meeting. So we're moving it to May 17th, and we'll send out a followed-up calendar so people can see that May 17th. Okay, so that's the report of that committee. We're moving on to the next committee, Industrial and Community Development. Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met this evening. In attendance was myself, Chair, Councillor Rossignol, Councillor Manning Martin, Councillor McGinn, Councillor Daigle. Also in attendance was Councillor Melville, Councillor Peach, Councillor Welton, Councillor O'Neill, and Councillor Turco. First on the agenda was the outdoor dining amendment, which was presented by the mayor. And in front of the committee, we went section by section, and we have work from Mr. Bellavance and the mayor to do. There was some good recommendations, and it was very lively discussion. So that's staying in committee. Second was a motion by Councilor McGinn to remove the Mill District Overlay Zoning Amendment because it was outdated, and we removed that from committee, and we're waiting for a new one to be presented to the Industrial Community Development Committee. So moved, Mr. President.
So the motion is to dispose of?
Take out of committee the Mill Overlay District zoning amendment.
Very good. All right, you heard the motion from Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Chairman Gould, just for clarity's sake, maybe reference the specific date of that, which would be December 3rd, 2020, so there's no confusion as to what.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. If I could, Allison, please add that. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor McGinn.
You heard the motion. We have a motion on the floor from Councilor Gould. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed to vote? Oh, okay, I'm sorry, excuse me, Councilor Rosen, I apologize. So we're gonna do a roll call vote on that.
Councilors Gould.
Yes.
Rossignol.
No.
Manning Martin. Peach.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Daigle.
Present.
Melville.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-1.
Councilor Gould?
No further motions, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Now moving on to the Ad Hoc Committee on Aggregate Industries, Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Ad Hoc Aggregate Industries Committee met this evening for the annual review of Aggregate Industries 2021 report. In attendance were committee members, Rossignol and Turco. Also in attendance were Councilors Gould, Manning Martin, Peach, McGinn, and Daigle. We also had a representative from Aggregate Industries named Jarrett Temple, who's their manager of land and environmental. We discussed the lengthy report in overviews regarding the blasting and asphalt batch plant operations at the Russell Street location. And we also focused on the blasting, noise background, and water studies that were taken and done and produced in the report. There were 10 blasts at the quarry in 2021, producing 235 tons of aggregate. There were no written property damage claims submitted by residents in 2021 to the Peabody Fire Department. However, there were 2 phone calls received by the fire department relating to blasting levels from 2 residents. One of the calls came on May 13th, and the second was made on September 30th. We also discussed issues with neighborhood issues and concerns and violations of the allowable hours for early and late trucking at the facility, which I mentioned earlier at the meeting. One of them involved October, where a truck entered past the allowed close time, and as well as a situation in November, which is a Saturday, where multiple trucks came from Atlanta Trucking before the facility was allowed to open. We've worked with Aggregate Industries local manager, Sean Clancy, as well as senior levels to understand that these types of violations will not be tolerated by either the residents or the council in the future. Lastly, we did hold a in-person meeting with Aggregate Industries prior to the start of the blast season this year, which included the blasting contractor, the fire department, as well as neighborhood representatives. There were also virtual attendees, and that was held on March 23rd. We discussed the report, neighborhood concerns, as well as the proposed blast plan for this year. The proposed blast plan for 2022 is 20 blast events. The first blast was held on March 31st at the quarry, with the most recent one on April 21st. There were no known issues regarding these blasts at this point in time. Overall, the annual report complied with all requirements, including noise and air quality monitoring, groundwater and storm testing and monitoring. At this time, I want to make sure that I accept late communications 2 and 7 and refer them to the committee of the whole. So moved.
You heard the motion. I'm sorry, Councillor, you were receiving?
Receiving late communications 2 and 7.
You heard the motion from Councillor O'Neill to receive the late communications. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councillor O'Neill?
There were 6 motions that were reported out of the committee by a vote of 3-0. At this time, I'll now bring them forth to the full council's consideration. Move that the 2021 annual report submitted by Aggregate Industries complies with the requirements of the special permit granted to Aggregate Industries. I move that the City Council approve Aggregate Industries' 2020 annual report with the following conditions. Number 1, Aggregate Industries should conduct additional noise mitigation efforts to ensure that the 10 decibel increase above background noise is not exceeded for any location for any period of time. Number 2, background noise level were last established in August of 2012. The city recommends that a new set of background noise levels be established in 2022. Number 3, Aggregate's noise management plan was last revised in February 2005. The city recommends that this plan be updated in 2022 to incorporate any new best practices. Number 4, have the Department of Public Services be sent a hard copy of the 2022 annual report for their review, as well as each annual report moving forward. Number 5, groundwater sampling from wells should continue to be done in the springtime. This would give best chance for the wells to have adequate groundwater table to help ensure that a sample can be taken and analyzed. And number 5, the Spill Prevention Control and Countermeasure Plan, SPCC, included in the annual report is stamped and dated by the engineer. It should be signed and dated from Aggregate Industries. So moved.
Thank you, Councilor O'Neill. You heard the motion from Councilor O'Neill. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Gould.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Peach. Yes. Welton.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my committee report.
Excellent. Thank you. So that concludes the reports of committee. We're moving on to motions, orders, and resolutions. Councilor Gould.
Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gould. Councilor Rozignol.
No motions this evening, Council President.
Thank you, Councilor Rozignol. Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to, well, I'll just skip right to, under suspension of the rules, motion to receive item 9A, junk dealer's license and renew all papers being in order for Golden Link, 515 Lowell Street, Martoni and James, 215 Newbury Street, number 206, and the Mod House, 58 Pulaski Street, 4th floor. Again, all papers being in order, so moved.
You heard the motion from Councilor Manning Martin. All in favor? Any opposed? Vote. Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you. And with that, through you to the clerk, it's almost May. Are these licenses supposed to renew at the end of last year? Much like I noted at the last meeting, we had this discussion that there were 3 entertainment licenses that were coming up for renewal, and evidently they were expired. So is this something new, that they're not getting in on time at the end of the year?
So junk dealers' licenses don't run the same as entertainment licenses, and so these renewals just went out, so these ones are in order.
Excellent. Okay, so do we have issues with entertainment license or motor vehicle licenses that aren't being renewed timely or enforced?
Motor vehicle licenses, classes 1, 2, and 3 generally come in time because they can't do a business with the state with the outdated license. So we don't generally have a problem with those. Entertainment licenses are a lot slower to come in. I think I have 5 outstanding that have still yet, and we've sent them yet another notification that they are outdated.
Or expired? So they're operating without a license?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to, if you don't mind, Councilor Melville, make a co-motion with you to refer this matter to legal affairs? To legal affairs, so that we can take a look at what the glitch is here, and how we can assist you in getting the applications received and the entertainment licenses enforced. So moved.
You heard the motion from Councilor Manning Martin. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed to vote? Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you. No further motions.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Peach.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive and approve item 9B, banner request for Care Dimensions, 75 Sylvan Street, Danvers, and St. Vasilios Greek Orthodox Church, 5 Paleologus Street, all papers being in order. So moved.
Hear the motion from Councilor Peach. All in favor? Any opposed to the vote? Councilor Peach.
Thank you, Mr. President. No further motions tonight. I do just want to thank DPS. I've had some residents reach out about signs that have fallen down throughout the winter or faded, outdated, that they needed replaced. And every time I've reached out to them, they've taken very quick action. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Peach. Councilor Welton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 8B and refer to both legal and community development for an opinion. So moved.
Are you talking about the city solicitor on that, or you're not referring to legal affairs, are you? Okay.
Yeah, refer to the city solicitor.
And yeah, you want to you want to refer that to community development and the legal affairs subcommittee.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah. You heard the motion from Councilor Welton. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed to vote? Councilor Welton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to receive item 8C and schedule a special permit hearing. So moved.
You heard the motion from Councilor Welton. All in favor, any opposed to vote? Councilor Welton.
Mr. President, move to receive and approve all papers being in order. 9C, block party request for Lakeshore from Granite to Fairview. And just a note, there's no opposition from fellow neighbors. So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Welton. You heard the motion. All in favor, any opposed to vote? Councilor Welton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a request to the Department of Public Services to inspect a sidewalk at 83 Bartholomew Street and patch the issue there. There's a drop in the sidewalk that is a tripping hazard, which I'd like to have addressed. So moved.
You heard the motion from Councilor Welton. Any discussion? All in favor, any opposed to vote? Councilor Welton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Lastly, a point of information for neighbors of Tilly's Farm. This evening, the Board of Health approved a request for goats to go to return to Tilly's Farm and Newhall Fields this May, and the goats will be doing a grazing date to be determined over a few days. So if there's any questions from my neighbors of Tilly's Farm, please feel free to reach out. So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Welton. Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of rules, move to receive item 7C and refer it to Finance Committee.
You heard the motion from Councilor O'Neill. All in favor? Any opposed? The vote. Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just two items. I also want to thank Department of Public Services. Ward 6 resident Tom Davidson, who's working on his Eagle Scout project, has been doing, he and his troop have been doing a lot of work up at the Gardner Burial Ground, which is a old private cemetery on Birch Road that the Historical Society is looking after. But he did a ton of work cleaning up brushes, leaves, tree roots, and everything. So it looked great, but what was great is that I called DPS once I heard about the project, and they were able to go out and pick up all that stuff and beautify the area and help out. So I just wanted to thank them for that, Bob LaBossiere and the work crews that did that. That was great. And then I have an announcement. We've all heard about the Pride and Peabody Cleanup Day, which is taking place on Saturday across the neighborhood. I just want to let people know that I'm going to be at the Crystal Lake / Elginwood area trying to tackle those areas for the debris and dirt. I'll be starting at 9:30, so looking for hands that want to come out. I'll have bags, maybe some donuts, but anyways, hope to see everyone there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor O'Neill. Councilor O'Neill, you all set? Okay. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 7B and refer to legal affairs. So moved.
You heard the motion from Councilor McGinn. All in favor? Any opposed? The vote. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 8A. So moved.
You heard the motion from Councilor McGinn. All in favor? Any opposed? Vote. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive late communication number 5 and refer to industrial and community development. So moved.
You heard the motion from Councilor McGinn. All in favor? Any opposed? The vote. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 8D and set up a public hearing. So moved.
You heard the motion from Councilor McGinn. All in favor? Any opposed? The vote. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. No further motions.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Councilor Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President. Just one motion. First, let me apologize for the late communication. It was a miscommunication between Councilor Gamache and I. Thought he was going to submit it to the clerk, and he thought I was. It's a co-motion with Councilor Gamache, if that's okay that he's not here. But anyway, it's a co-motion to submit this to the Legal Affairs Subcommittee, as well as to get an opinion of the proposed ordinance in this document from the city solicitor.
You heard the motion from Councilor Turco. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed? A vote. Councilor Turco.
No further motions, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Turco. Councilor Daigle.
Thank you, Mr. President. A question about 8E, where that was withdrawn. Do I need to receive that?
You can just receive it.
Okay, motion to receive item 8E.
Move to receive item, motion to receive item 8. All in favor, any opposed? A vote. Councilor Daigle.
Under suspension of the rules, motion to receive late communication number 1 and refer it to legal affairs, I believe? Oh, you did? Oh. I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
All right, then no further motions, just a couple of public service announcements. Mass Department of Transportation has started a project on Lowell Street by 128. And the update that we recently got from Public Services is that the contractor there is currently working on reconstructing the island sidewalks and pedestrian ramps and should have the work completed by the end of May. And the milling and paving of the ramps in Lowell Street is currently scheduled for mid-July. I also want to mention to everyone that there's an Arbor Day celebration tomorrow at Emerson Park at 11 a.m. All are welcome. Councilor O'Neill beat me to it. Arbor Day, the cleanup on Saturday is 10 to 12 in general. You can come to City Hall and grab your supplies and go off to, they'll direct you off to different areas. I have a team that will be going up to Emerson Park, and we will be having pizza around noontime. First come, first serve, but all are welcome. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Councilor Daigle. So just a couple of items from me. We had the, with regards to the item that Councilor Manning Martin sent to legal, I think one thing I'd like to see, and as I'll make this as a motion for the city clerk to provide the council with the expiration dates for the license types, whether they expire annually or if they're cyclical based on the original approval date, and then the fee structure based off of those. I think that's going to be important for us. I do think that's a part of this. And the second issue is a communication issue and enforcement. So if the city, or if it's typically been kind of business as usual to submit your renewal in April when it's supposed to be done in December, and you've been doing it for years and nobody's ever told you not to, that's a communication thing that we should look at. And then the enforcement side will come after we communicate that that's just not something we're going to accept any longer. I think and really for me, and it's for a number of reasons, obviously for the public, but for the clerk staff to have, it's really important for them to be able to wrap up renewals when they're supposed to be wrapping up their renewals. Otherwise, it can make things very difficult for them. So my motion would just be to get those, the expiration dates for the types of permits and the permit types and the costs. And we'll include that as part of the packet that goes to legal on this discussion. That's a motion for me. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. And second to that, I think, and I won't make this as a motion, it's just something to start thinking about as we discuss this. I think there's certain permit licensing types, like this entertainment license we had this evening. I'm not sure if it's, I think live entertainment is one thing, but having a TV and a radio, do we want a butter notifications advertisement and a public hearing for those types of transactions? I think is worth thinking about. Before I make a motion on that, I want to do a little bit more research on it. I think part of getting this information will be helpful on that end. But, the butter notification and advertisement, depending on where you live, can be very expensive. And if it's just TVs and radios, I'm not so sure. I mean, I'm not saying that I think we still keep the permit, but maybe it doesn't necessarily need a public meeting. Maybe we can do it with all papers being in order. So I think that's something to think about to save some businesses some money. But other than that, we will be sending out an updated schedule this week for the meetings and where we're at into the summer, what's going to be the scheduled summer break. And seeing nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn. You heard the motion from Councilor Gould. All in favor? Any opposed? We are adjourned.